What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it looks like we're starting to see more details get thrown around for this mysterious Project M Switch 2 title coming from Bloober team, and it's actually to now where people are thinking of titles like Eternal Darkness for it, and that could get kind of out there and crazy, but we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a patent coming from Sony that's looking to solve load screens, and go figure, yes, AI is involved for it, and Media Molecule, which coming off of Dreams, people have been a bit concerned about the future for the studio, but it seems like some of the details around their next project are popping up online, and fortunately, starting to sound more like a game than, well, what Dreams ended up being, but we'll go over all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the SpawnWave channel, make sure you subscribe down below, and of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below, and we're gonna start today with Xbox and their player voice forum that they have, and this is a place where people can go and vote on different changes and suggestions that people are making from the Xbox community to Microsoft, and the list now, like you can see over on Pure Xbox, they have the top 25, and the number one is still exclusives. However, something that happened was, it seems like Microsoft did cross one of the suggestions off the list, and that was change playtime from days to hours. Yeah, so it just makes it more specific for how much time, say, you've put into a game there on like the system clock for it. That's, I mean, helpful. It is definitely better just to see as opposed to days, and or even trying to figure out the math for all of that. You just want to play a game and then see how many hours you put into it. Now, of course, number one, number two, and I would say even number three are going to be ones that'll be a bit more to figure out, especially exclusives, but I mean, at least they did something here, so there you go. Now you know how many hours you put into a game as opposed to how many days. Also, Ed Boon held a poll, and in this poll, he asked about different remaster projects, and two in particular came up, and well, you can see the results here. We have Shaolin Monks, that was number one, 51% voted for that. But then Mortal Kombat 9 was right there with it, 48%. It says like 51.5, 48.5. But still, Shaolin Monks and Mortal Kombat 9 both being named here. And he asked which one should be remastered first. So I want to point out, the fact that he's asking which one is first, that means you assume both of them are being looked at right now. And to me, this is very exciting because I like both of these games. But I think Shaolin Monks does need it more. I know Mortal Kombat 9, if you look back onto that reboot that they did for the Mortal Kombat universe there, man, what an iconic launch that was. Awesome game. Still go back and play it. You need the disc, I believe, for the Xbox Series. I actually booted it up on the Vita somewhat recently. I think that was one of the more mind-blowing moments for me, is playing that sort of a game on the Vita while it was also like there on the Xbox 360 and I was playing that. But I mean, Shaolin Monks, if they do a full remaster of that, I mean, I'm there day one. There was a lot to that game, and it's a shame that it's still left back on the original Xbox and the PS2. I think it'd be a lot of fun to see a different kind of Mortal Kombat game, we'll say, get brought up and have some focus there. Even just a standard remaster, just to get it onto the newer platforms, I think would be great. But then, yeah, you should also do Mortal Kombat 9 with rollback netcode, the whole thing. That could be a lot of fun. Oh, and we did get some footage for Metal Gear Solid 4, as that is coming through the new collection that'll be out at the end of August. And you can see some of the footage here. The thing that was really fun is it is 60 frames per second. That's awesome, because if you play it on the PS3, it's still probably, I mean, unless you have a really, really strong PC to play it and like boost the visuals and then also the frame rate, still might be the best way to experience the game right now. And of course, it's trapped on the PlayStation 3, at least until August 27th. So I'm picking up probably multiple copies of that collection with Metal Gear Solid 4 in tow. But 60 frames per second here on stream as they were playing it, visually speaking, looked pretty good. And it seems that a lot of the branding in there, like people were pointing out the iPod and a few other things, that will also still stay in the game with this version in the new collection. So that is pretty cool that I guess they didn't have to go back and change any of it. So exciting stuff all the way around. It's great to see Metal Gear Solid 4 finally break away from the PlayStation 3 and being trapped in that generation. Now coming up not only to just a new audience, but a whole slew of different systems will be available on. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Broken Mirror Games and Bloober team with this Project M, which is apparently a Switch 2 game that they're making. And you figure, yeah, it's going to be a horror game, but things got a bit more interesting the other day day when the CEO at Bloober team made a post on LinkedIn, just kind of thinking out loud almost, and then even asking questions as to, hey, which horror game comes to mind when you think of maybe Nintendo and others? So this is actually the post that he had here, where he says, I have a question that's been on my mind for quite a while. What could Nintendo Switch 2 do for horror games in a way that PC, PlayStation, or Xbox simply wouldn't be able to replicate in quite the same way? I'm not even talking about raw power of graphics, more about how the platform itself can influence experience design, immersion, tension, player behavior, portability, console features, controllers, the feeling of closeness with the game, or even completely different approaches to building atmosphere. What kind of horror game design would you personally love to see here? One thing I've always appreciated about Nintendo platforms is that they often inspire design decisions you probably wouldn't make anywhere else. And honestly, that's what excites me the most. I'm not asking how to make horror more casual or safer, quite the opposite. How to create something uniquely Nintendo while still remaining dark, disturbing, and fully horror-driven. So, I will say, in the next direct that we assume is happening in June, Project M might be a bit of a dark horse reveal. It's possible it could be there, so I guess keep an eye out for that one. But what could you do with the Switch 2 that maybe isn't possible with other platforms? Because he did ask about examples of different games that come to mind, say for Nintendo platforms in the horror genre. And I saw Eternal Darkness come up, and immediately I think about how all the ways that game tried to trick you, do fourth wall breaking, and at one point it made you think your save file was erased. That's kind of messed up. I don't know if you go that far with it, although you could, because it would probably get people to freak out if it was like, hey, your Nintendo Online account's now banned and all of your cloud saves are gone. Like, yeah, that would probably do some damage there for the 30 seconds until it reminds you that, oh yeah, you're playing like this psychological horror game that's trying to do this stuff to you. I mean, Eternal Darkness really does, in my mind, stand out from a lot of games of that time period because it did take those chances. So when I think about how could you make a game unique, say for the Switch 2, well, the big thing that's unique about the system is the fact that it is a hybrid model. So it can dock or undock. And I almost wonder if they would think about playing around with that. It's like you have to undock it for certain things, but then it also would rule out the possibility of playing it on any kind of like Switch 2 Lite, I guess, that would be usable. I guess you could also do some stuff with the Joy-Con 2 controllers because there is a lot going on in those controllers outside, of course, rumble and stuff. So I am really curious how exactly they would try to differentiate, say, a horror game using things outside of just raw horsepower for graphics and compute. What else could they do there? So let me know your thoughts on that one, because I think there are some really cool ideas that I'm not at all thinking about that people could drop in the comments, or hopefully that Bloober team is coming up with something like Project M, because they certainly seem interested enough to just kind of throw this out there on LinkedIn and see what kind of ideas come back. Next up, let's talk about a new patent that was discovered for Sony, as it looks to be figuring out load screens somewhat. Now, I will say load screens in general are much less frequent, if at all at times, in certain games than they were back during like the PS2 and the Xbox generation. But even the Xbox 360, the Xbox One, the PS4, really up until it's been solid state drives like all the way for this generation, load screens have existed at times in an annoyingly long fashion. But still, seems like Sony wants to work out any time where there is a load screen that is needed, and like we can see this. Now this is over on MP First. They also had the story for Media Molecule that we'll look at here soon. But they say the patent aims to make the wait for load times and even matchmaking queues a lot more bearable, and it will be using AI to intelligently show content while players wait, which it's not too surprising that you would use an algorithm of some kind or artificial intelligence to try to match up what someone wants to see, because everything around us already does that. I mean, if you're on your phone, it of course is probably listening, but also curating and is able to track, say, on social media platforms what you like to look at, and then it tries to feed you the next thing, of course, that you want to see to keep you engaged. So that's not new at all. But they go on to say, so gamers, instead of just starting looking at a load screen or waiting for player screen, the console would automatically fill that dead time with short-form content. Yes. Like a built-in TikTok that fires off when the load screen happens. Anyway, it can include a number of different things: videos, gameplay highlights, their social media clips. They'll bring the social. Wow, Some of the social media stuff you see on places like Twitter X, imagine that on your load screen while you're trying to play the game that it hates. Okay, AI generated match analysis, player scatter reports, tips, ads and promotions. There it is. Okay. Got to get the ads in there. Anyway, they also mentioned picture-in-picture display, and that made me think of the Xbox Snap feature. Do you remember that? I feel like Microsoft was on to something with that idea, and it just didn't pan out. And we see they pivoted away from that. Now it seems to have to do with a lot of the resources that it was using, and they'd rather give that to the developers. That's fine, but you know, the idea of being able to run, say, your cable net, like your cable box through it now, and be able to have picture-in-picture. Yeah, there are times where I will be playing my Switch 2 or Portal while I'm watching a football game or something. So that feels very useful now, and maybe took it for granted a bit back then. But again, these companies are going to figure out ways to monetize, yes, things like load screens with real-time content, but also ways to keep you engaged. That is the big fight, the big battle for them. Trying to make it so you don't look away from the screen if they can help it. And so feeding you social media right there while you're still there looking at the screen, that's probably their best bet, and what they are thinking right now is keeping you glued to the screen, not having you go off and start looking at TikTok or Twitter X or Facebook or whatever, because then they can lose you to that. And that, as has been mentioned, is their primary goal now, is keeping their platform as the one and only source of entertainment during your downtime. Next up, let's talk about Media Molecule, who is currently coming off of Dreams, which I don't think that turned out at all how Media Molecule wanted, or Sony. It didn't really necessarily catch on. They didn't move it to PC, and it feels like a creation tool like that, and again, tool, not necessarily game, would have made a ton of sense for Sony's like PC initiative that they were doing. But it never panned out, and here it is still on PlayStation and Media Molecule moving on to the next thing. People have been hoping that they just make a game, or something that feels more like a game. Like Little Big Planet had like the creation tools, like you could make all kinds of stuff in it, but it felt like a game first and then a creation tool set second, all right? Well, it looks like a portfolio has been found that's giving us some insight into what Media Molecule is working on right now. We can see this is over on MP First, and it's a senior environment designer, April 2025 to present, working on an unannounced project, a new IP, and this would be at Media Molecule. And the thing that people are looking at here does mention open world content, vision holder for various open world content, feature, owner, main contact, documentation of levels, paper design, 2D layout, and pitching, level blocking out main points of interest, moment-to-moment gameplay, forge design, and scripting various gameplay events. Yeah, it sounds like more of a game. This is good news. Now, I don't necessarily think you have to throw open world into every single game out there, but at this point, I would just like to see Media Molecule do something other than Dreams. And people have wondered, how is Media Molecule still open? We see Sony go on, obviously, this massive wave of closures, and oh, you don't have anything that's going to be ready in the next couple of years, you're shut down. You can't figure out something through a pitch process at Blue Point, you're shut down. But Media Molecule remains open. And I do think it's because there is something very unique about that studio. They make games that, I say games, I just mentioned Dreams tools. They have ideas that you don't necessarily see anywhere else in the industry. So that's why I'm very hopeful that, yes, sure, they're probably going to make something where you are also able to create stuff within that world. But I hope it's kind of like Little Big Planet, where you'd fire that up, you can just play the game, but then also there's all kinds of user-generated content that people post online, and you can download it, stuff will transfer over to the next one, and you just have a ton of stuff to play there. I think it was such an awesome experience, and again, so unique with these different Little Big Planet games, that I would like to see Media Molecule come up with something similar to that style, where it's like 70% game, 30% creation tool, at least from the presentation standpoint. Dreams is like 80% tool and like 20% game. So that's my hope, but it's good to see that at least they have an idea or a mindset of game first. And I mean, I don't know if we'll see it at the state of play. It's possible they just go, hey, here's what Media Molecule's doing. It'll be a couple of years, and they'll probably need your help at some point in an early access or closed beta period. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about some good news when it comes to backing up physical media. Now, we can see this. This is over on TechSpot, who says OmniDrive, that moved out of beta in February, adds support for MediaTek's MT1959 chipset, enabling drives to read proprietary formats that were previously off limits. So what this means is if you have a Blu-ray drive with this specific chipset, you're able to rip all kinds of games that previously were not able to be done just on like a standard PC with a basic DVD, or you can even say Blu-ray drive. So they name the GameCube, Wii, original Xbox, Xbox 360. Wii U was also something that was mentioned there, but apparently that's not necessarily great at this time. They're still working through it. Now, this is a file that you download, a full firmware set that you then flash to the chipset and completely opens it up to these different discs. And there's an entire video that's also linked out through that TechSpot report, where they do show off how to do this and then also rip an Xbox 360 disc. That was pretty cool to see. I actually have, I think I have a Blu-ray drive that has this chipset, and I was looking at it because I've used it to rip my PS3 games, and it does fill up pretty quick. Like I had like a 2 terabyte drive that I was using, and it was getting pretty close. Like I've just been ripping all these Blu-rays to the system, and then I see this pop up, and I go, I think I have that, and I look because it's an LG, and they have it listed on the wiki page for this, so you can go through and look. Unfortunately, everyone else is also looking at these, so they're climbing in price a bit, or some of them are just not even listed and flat out rare. So kind of unfortunate there, but it is nice to see that some of these things are happening and people are making these kinds of breakthroughs and developing this kind of stuff, because it is nice to be able to back up your disc. As whenever you see these decompilation projects happen, they go, hey, get your own backup of Sonic, or we just did a Twilight Princess, and people kind of look around and go, how do I do that? And then it's a whole thing of, well, you got to modify a system, and here you would just have a Blu-ray drive installed to PC. That's kind of an oddity, I know, as well. There's like the slimline USB ones as well. And you just pop the disc in, rip it, and you're good to go. And that's it. So good stuff here. I will have it linked down below in the sources if you want to read further and try to back up some of your own games. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you played any of the Little Big Planet games before? Okay, 60% say yes. 40% say no. That's pretty good, I feel like. So I think back on the Little Big Planet games, I feel like the one I remember the most was Little Big Planet 2. And I just think at that time, seeing these games show up, and you could then also make your different levels, but again, it felt like a game, but it also felt very Sony, or very PlayStation 3, like the generation. Very different than how Sony feels now, I understand. Although I guess you could look at something like Astrobot. It had that kind of feeling, but back then. And I think it's kind of a shame that Media Molecule moved away from it to work on Dreams. Although they had an idea for Dreams, I understand. I just don't think it panned out. So maybe if they work back to the feeling of Little Big Planet, but in a new IP, that could be awesome, because it seems like there's still many people who remember it fondly. There were a lot of really happy, positive comments that it came up in a poll. So hopefully Media Molecule has a plan for this open world type of game that can maybe pull some of the spirit of Little Big Planet forward. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Sage, who says, I'm in Japan currently. Dragon Quest Island is giving out special collection items now till Dragon Quest Day, and some merch for sale is already available in Japan, but global release after announcement, but the games are still hush-hush. Yeah, Dragon Quest is massive in Japan. But now I will say anticipation has been building. There's some high hopes right now for this week with this live stream and some big reveals. It's now multiple reveals. Originally, I was thinking maybe Dragon Quest 12, but now people are thinking like 3 or 4 reveals. Keep in mind, they could have a mobile game there. You know, they could have different crossovers. Of course, merchandise, collaborations. I think if I go into this live stream and then come out the other side and there's Dragon Quest 12, at least being somewhat shown, mentioned, new details, and then a remaster or reimagining. If I get both of those things, I'll be pretty happy with that live stream then. So I have my fingers crossed, hoping that's what we're gonna see. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear more about how Nintendo seems to have bigger plans they were letting on to investors earlier on in the month. I did a whole video on that, and I'll leave right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.